Today we're gonna build a spring in open source. But before we do that, I want to give you a guideline on how to create new items for your game. Whenever dealing with scripting, open the documentation to know which commands are available. Also, use the debug mode to test things. And finally, get a clear sense of what you want to do. Example, we're gonna create a spring. What does a spring do? A spring propels the player upwards when touched, and there are two requirements for building it. First, we need its sprite, and second, its script. A spring sprite has two animations, idle and action. We can just save this file into the sprites folder. Also take note that the sprite is named mySpring. Our SurgeScript entity will have the same name, mySpring. So we'll create a new file called myspring.ss and save it into the scripts folder. Next, we'll import some components and declare the entity. Let's create an actor with the sprite we have just created and a collider to detect collisions. Also, we'll set the collider to be visible so we can just debug things. Open the engine and press right 3 times to open the debug mode. Now let's open the sandbox. The sandbox is just a level you can play around with. Open the editor and our spring is there. But it doesn't work yet. Also, the collider doesn't seem to be aligned with the sprite. Let's fix that. By default, the collider is centered on the hotspot of the sprite. To change this, we can use the setAnchor command. The anchor tells which part of the collider should be aligned to the hotspot of the sprite. In this case, we're gonna set it to 1/2 and 1. Let's see. It's better now. Now, how do we detect collisions? Well, we just declare function onCollision. It receives some other collider as an argument and is called automatically whenever there is a collision. Let's just print something and test it. Okay, it seems to be working. Alright, to be able to propel the player upwards, we need to get the player object. If you take a look at the collider documentation, you'll see a property called entity. That's the entity associated with the collider, and that's what we want to use. To check if the entity is indeed the player, we'll use the hashtag function. And if there is a collision with the player, we'll propel him. And what's propel? Well, it's a function that receives a player object. If the player is falling down, let's set its y speed to minus 960 pixels per second. And let's change the player so that it stays in the springing animation. Okay, the player is already being propelled, but there's more I'd like to do. I'd like to play a sound and change the animation of the spring whenever there's an impact. Let's see the result. Okay, it's working.